How's it going, everyone? Mufara here. Welcome to Heliopolis Radio. I hope you enjoy the content. Peace and blessings to the people. How's it going, everyone? Mufara here. Welcome to Heliopolis Radio. Thank you for tuning in. Wishing you all a blessed week. And a good week moving forward. And so, we're back at it again with the Your Body Speaks Your Mind podcast series. And as usual, I normally just take some quotes and I elaborate on the ones which I can. And then I leave the rest as food for thought. And so, again, if you haven't read the book I'm taking these quotes and chapters out of is Your Body Speaks Your Mind by Deb Shapiro. And I think you can get it online and in most bookstores. So I recommend you give it a read. It's been a very good one. And so, this chapter is basically about the correlation between the curing of physical symptoms within the body and the healing of the spirit and the mind. And so how the two are kind of interrelated and inseparable. And so, the first quote is that to cure is to fix a particular part. And it plays a vital role in alleviating suffering. And so she defines health as complete physical, mental, and social well-being, which is probably a universally shared sentiment. And so, she says that if you only see what is wrong and try to get rid of it, you're ignoring the original cause of the illness, why it is there and what it can teach you and how it is of benefit. And so essentially how we shouldn't just seek to cure physical symptoms. We need to utilize them to look deeper within ourselves to see what it does in relation to, or what it may mean in relation to our mental state of health, our emotional state of health, and our life circumstances in general. And so, and then another quote is that healing is an involved activity and it requires engagement, obviously. And healing can occur actually when curing doesn't. And so the instances where sometimes the physical symptoms aren't necessarily cured or healed, but then the individual within themselves has experienced a deep, profound amount of peace and resolution within themselves. So it's interesting. And you can pamper your pain, or you can use it to understand yourself more deeply, which is actually very true. I think pain serves as a great way sometimes for us to really get in tune with ourselves to the deepest core, and it can be a tool for excellent personal growth. I'm not saying it like I'm like a master of it, but I would definitely agree with that sentiment. And so, she says that that illness itself is the way the body is dealing with underlying imbalances or traumatized energy. And so sometimes when we're sick, they may be, this is not necessarily fact, but there may be a correlation between those physical states of disharmony and energetic states of disharmony within ourselves, things that are not working out, anger, frustration, depression, which are just actually perpetuating our body to spiral out of control. And so, she says that it is the letting go of resistance of the armor and the barriers that have been constructed of the layers of self-protection in which healing can transpire. And so, I think the most difficult part with the nature of healing is that we have certain barriers that we establish between us and the outside world, or not even just that, between us and our internal state of affairs. We use these things to not have to face issues. And so I think in recent years, personally myself, I realized that deconstructing your self-defense mechanisms is like a fundamental part of helping you find some type of mental peace and clarity, especially when you're trying to essentially get yourself better. I mean, not better, but more functional and more healthy as a whole. And so, she also states that sometimes we stay so busy that there's no time to be alone, and we use activity and productivity. And I know things like productivity is a good thing in terms of like your output, but I realize a lot of people who are traumatized, they use their work, they use activity, the nature of restlessness to avoid having to maybe deal with what's internally, making them restless and making them suffer. And so, yeah. She also says that you should bring together intention with our thoughts and feelings as they are manifestations in the body. And so, yeah, if you believe in the whole the mind heart body cohesion, it's important to have some type of synchronicity. In my mind, it doesn't make sense, or at least in my experience, there's rarely ever a time when mentally I'm like not well and then physically good. I think there has to be a strict harmony between all those aspects for you to be like considerably healthy, right? And so another subsection that she mentions is fear and fearlessness. And so she mentions that fear is good in the sense that it maintains your alertness to danger, which is really important. It's a survival mechanism. But unhealthy fear is neurotic anxiety, which is really true. It's unhealthy fear is paralyzing, and it is the fear that masquerades as the need for control. And so being a perpetrator myself, a lot of the times, most of the time actually, in the state of fear that I'm in, it's just because ultimately I realize I have no control. And essentially that's a very difficult thing to deal with, particularly in a world which I guess, sometimes you want to survive. I don't know why, even though, there may not be anything worth surviving for, but it's still just inherent in our human psyche to do that. But she goes on to say that nothing can be held onto. And so it's about walking through the world of fear that you can live in a world of love. And so I'm not talking love like in a hippie, hold hands type of shit. I'm just saying that, the love that's genuine, to be authentic, to be accepting of what comes with being receptive and vulnerable, in the sense that you can't protect yourself from everything. You have to embrace the world at some point, right? And so, she actually prescribed a fear review. And so the first thing she said is she recommends is you sit quietly, you breathe into your heart. And then second is you try find your fear. Try find where it is in your body. Is it in your core? Is it in your head? Is it in your shoulders and in your knees? Is it in your guts? And then where is it in your past? And so where do those feelings take you back to? What events, what things have happened to you that are tied to that energetic, sensation? And the third one, which is really the most difficult part, at least when I try to do it, is to try not hide from fear. But instead, she recommends that you follow it. And so you have to ask yourself the question, what does it stop you from doing, and what does it make you do? And initially, for me, even just doing this whole podcasting thing, I'm not really big on engaging in like social media or anything like that. But I guess part of my overcoming a certain fear was just to communicate with people in the outside world. I try to consider myself an introvert, so the fear of extroversion is a major thing, and I know I'm not the only introvert that's afraid of social exchanges. And so the next subsection was also a really good one. It's called the heart remission. And so she says that healing is a journey of trust, and it's a discovery of your inner strength, and it demands your total commitment, especially the total commitment part. A lot of the times we seek to heal temporarily, and I don't know if life necessarily works that way. I think life requires a certain level of intensity and dedication and devotion from us. I know the world, we promote a lot of superficial forms of healing, like, be happy in this moment, or, whatever drug, whatever pill, whatever, form of escapism that brings that temporary form of healing. But this healing that she's talking about is the one which we kind of, it's a long-term thing. It could be years, it could be a lifetime. And so, she says that it's about finding meaning, which gives direction and motivation. Not all of us find meaning, some of us just find direction, somehow our way manages, and that's our thing. Some of us find motivation, some of us find neither, but there's always something that we can take from trying to engage the healing process. And so, she also defines remission as remission, which is to be redefined or to become reconnected with your mission or purpose. And so remission arises through a blend of responsibility and passivity. It's essentially that you take responsibility for your own behavior, actions, words, thoughts, lifestyle, and no one else can do that for you. And yeah, I definitely think that's true. I think accountability is the only thing that kind of liberates you from whatever type of struggle, is when you start, trying as best, regardless of whatever the circumstances are, to do your part, to do your part and to do what's within your power. And no one else can really do that for you, unfortunately. And so, or fortunately, actually. And so, yeah, to be responsible is to be able to respond, which is really true. Responsibility is just that preparedness to react in the best possible manner to life and its circumstances. And so, I think she was hitting a nail on the head with a lot of these, because they're very practical and straightforward. It's not something complex. I think it's something that you can take in and really apply to yourself. And so, she said action needs to be also balanced by non-action, which is more of the, I guess, esoteric nature of it, right? Like the nature of sometimes you need to also go with the flow. You can't always be engaging and trying to make things happen when sometimes they're not meant to happen. So it's funny, like it's kind of like a paradox, but it's a balance between motion, non-motion, yin and yang. And so it's pretty good. And so she also mentions that children have the capacity to flow with each moment without holding on and trying to control things. And I think that's kind of the beauty that comes with having a youthful or childish demeanor, is you have a certain higher degree of surrender than people who are maybe more, I guess, mature or in an adult phase, which is more difficult. Surrender is much more harder because it's maybe not seen in the same positive light. And so, this attitude towards simply being is one of letting go of resistance and entering into assurance, which is basically kind of faith or a trust that things will work out, and that's difficult because a lot of us are rationalists. I'm not myself included, but people really tend to rely more on rationalism. They trust really in concrete, grounded results, and sometimes the nature of the healing process is the opposite of that. It's the unknown. It's the ending of what we think as security and moving into true security, and so it's a deeper level of trust that even in myself I find very difficult, especially in this type of world, to invest in. And so she goes on to say that surrender means the decision to stop fighting the world and to start loving it instead. And so loving it not in like hippie sense or whatever, but loving it in the sense that you see things as they are and you accept them. Love is, at its fundamental core, at least in my experience, it's really acceptance. It has nothing to do with morals or whatever dogmas or whatever social stigmas that they are. It's really acceptance and being able to be okay with things, even if that's not what you would want or what you'd imagine or what you feel is morally right. It's really just things as they are. And so, the next one was finding forgiveness, which is a major one. And so, through forgiveness, you are able to confront those places within that are holding on to the past traumas, and you're able to release the pain. She goes on to say that lack of forgiveness keeps the guilt. It locks you into the past and limits your ability to change, which is really true. This one is still a major point for me. Because forgiveness, she says, releases you from both the story and your pain. I found that in myself. You get addicted to the story, you get addicted to the thing that happened or the thing that all these, whatever we do to act as if that thing is still present or it has to stay. And so she goes on to say that an attachment to pain can create tremendous resistance to forgiveness. And, we say we're attached to things, material things or, emotional things like sex, whatever. But really, it's actually pain. we hold on to pain more than anything, and we hold on to it in the most subconscious levels. At least I've really looked, doing the personal reflections, I really found that within myself, is that your pain is really something you hold close to you, because it's the thing that actually gets to your core. So one thing that penetrates whatever mask, whatever facade, whatever persona you portray. Pain is the one thing that cuts straight through to the core. It cuts through the bullshit. And so anything that can compromise you that deeply, you know, you hold it most close, right? And so she goes on to say that beneath the grief lie love, compassion, and tenderheartedness, which is true. I think when you go through the process, eventually you reach a certain level of mental peace and clarity where you're able to empathize more and understand things more, you know, which maybe, in my opinion, that's the inherent purpose of pain, is to really help us, you know, reach a deeper level of understanding and, you know, non-compulsion, you know, non-reactivity, peace, in essentially. But not everyone reaches it. Everyone takes it differently, and this is myself included. This is more of an idealistic sense, but it comes from a good place, from what I see. And so she goes on to say that you have to be stripped naked emotionally and start from there, bringing forgiveness to every part of your body. Not literally stripping, but you know what I'm saying, being naked, like with your insecurities and all those type of things. And so the more you forgive yourself, the more you'll be able to forgive others, which I agree with strongly. And so it is a great gift you can give to yourself, because it liberates you from a certain cycle of suffering and pain that you perpetually go through, simply because you know, we have all these subconscious themes and things just playing off in the background without us really knowing. And so it's a constant work, but I think if you really give it the necessary dedication, it can be of serious benefit to your health and to your mental and emotional state of well-being. And so she recommended a forgiveness review. You don't have to follow it, but the first thing is you find a quiet and comfortable place to sit. You focus on your heart space, which is just your heart, like the center, and bring forgiveness into that space. And so you must be gentle, and you must stay with the practice, which is extremely important. And you must release yourself gently. And so whatever resentment that tends to manifest in the heart space takes quite a bit of time to release, because that's where a lot of our deepest feelings are entrenched. And so she actually recommends in the next subsection, which is called Loving Love. And it's not, I'm not anti-hippie or anti, any of that stuff. I'm just trying to bring a sense of groundedness to it. And so, she goes on and says that love is the healer. And so enough time is spent focusing on difficulties and pain, which is true. And it needs to be balanced by dwelling in and experiencing the positive things. You need to hold on to the small positive things to be able to handle maybe the more overwhelming sense of negativity that comes with the process of healing. And so, she says that, saying I love you to yourself sometimes, I know it sounds very it's a very, it's a simple thing, but saying I love you to yourself or to another person, especially in this world that we live in where, it's tough, man. It's really tough. And I found it very tough I still don't get it right, to be honest. And I probably don't even do it as much as I should. But I'm now in more agreement with this, is that you have to have some form of appreciation and acceptance. Love being acceptance, not any moral thing, but an acceptance of yourself and others, so that way you can have a certain level of mental peace and clarity, and not, be consistently frustrated with yourself or with others whenever your expectations or things aren't met. And so, apologies for the page turning. She says that, without being touched in a loving manner, babies can die and adults can go insane. And it sounds really thin, because a lot of us, we try to be stoic and we try to be strong. But it is that you have to embrace love, you have to embrace vulnerability, and you must also give it when you can, when you're in the capacity to do so. And so yeah, I know it was a pretty long podcast. These Your Body Speak Your Mind podcast segments, I'm trying to shorten them, make the chapters much more concise, but it's deep because it's, you can't make it superficial. It's supposed to be part of like a way of helping yourself, really, and so there's no shortcut to that. And so, yeah, thank you guys for tuning into the podcast. I'll try to have another one out sometime during the week, a retrospect podcast series. And yeah, thank you for tuning in. Peace and blessings to the people. Thank you.